Hi and welcome to our webinar, Riding the Digitalization Highway in the Automotive Industry. My name is Markus Salzmann. I will host today's webinar with our three speakers. First, our very own Jan Kirchhoff, who is product owner of Connected Ride apps and digital services from the BMW Group. We have Søren Zdun, a customer success manager, automotive, and last but not least, Jan Bode, our senior community manager, automotive. But first, I would hand over to Jan for his part of the presentation.
Hi, and thank you, and good afternoon to all the people being visitors to this webinar. My name is Jan Kirchhoff. I work with BMW, and today I'd like to give you a little bit of an introduction about the journey we made in the past years and months with BMW Motorrad, with digitalization, and the challenges we came across. And for me, this was a pretty thrilling time, as BMW Motorrad started with almost no one being employed with digital topics. So the BMW car side is much more advanced in that. But first, let me talk about my job that I actually do at BMW Motorrad. My actual profession at BMW Motorrad in the team of digital products and services is product success management. And product success management is pretty much what you can see here. Talking about my job as a product success manager with BMW Motorrad Connected, I care about pretty much everything related to product communication, user analytics, so quality, support, everything you can imagine about testing, and of course our customer feedback management. And when we started, we didn't know that all of this is actually there. We just focused on developing an app, developing a digital product, and it turned out pretty fast that there's more to do. Yeah, there's more to do. There's users to support, and the organization itself was not able to handle it, as there was just no processes for digital things in BMW Motorrad. And what we experienced is also some of the stories I want to tell today. I have to point one thing out, that everything I tell is basically my own opinion. So whatever I say, it's not not necessarily the opinion of Mr. Zipse, who's our chairman of BMW Motorrad or BMW, but I think still some pretty valid points. Okay, so but let's start in the beginning, and the beginning is here. Somewhere in 2017, I changed jobs from Alphabet Fleet Management, that's also a BMW company, where I did mobile apps before, to BMW Motorrad, and it was quite a start of it was quite a new and next episode for me, and since it's a completely different culture. To give you some context in comparison to BMW cars, I mean, we are still all employed by the same company, by BMW, but compared to BMW cars, BMW Motorrad is a much smaller department or area of BMW, and still we build motorcycles. We built motorcycles earlier than cars. So motorcycles are built since 1923 by BMW Motorrad, and the cars branch started in 1928. But as you can see, there is more need for cars than for motorcycles, obviously. So there's at the moment, or in last years, there was about 2.5 million cars built per year, while we were only in hyphens, only building and selling 165,000 motorcycles per year. Exactly. So whatever we do it at BMW Motorrad. It's much smaller, much more leaner than the things that will be done at BMW cars. At the same time, it's our job to cherry pick the parts that BMW cars already did that we can reuse. I mean, it's a logical step to then leverage potentials, leverage symbiosis to profit from them. Okay. So the things I want to tell you, I just gave them a small structure, and I started with product, and afterwards we come to people and to the challenges. So I just want to give you some context at the beginning, what the actual product is about, what the users actually are supposed to experience. I want to give you some context about motorcycling. So if we were in a room now, like in a venue, I would ask how many people in the audience are actually familiar with riding motorcycles. And here and there are like, I don't know, 10% of the people max. And that's why I love to just put that slide, because it tells pretty much what motorcycling is about. It's about outside sports. It's about racing. It's also about touring. It's about being together on one bike for a few thousand kilometers just for the joy of riding through the mountains, or even just riding on a racetrack for a whole weekend. So, and the point I want to make is this has basically nothing to do with digital stuff. This is so strictly, so straightforward analog. It's happening outside with like engines and petrol and all this stuff. So this is the stage where we put a product on. Yeah, doesn't mean that those people are not open to use apps and all this stuff, but this is where they come from basically, and this is what we have to keep in mind when designing products. And if we talk about the product, actually, we talk about a BMW Motorrad connected app. So this is an app offered in the app stores for Android and iOS by BMW Motorrad, and we started this in September 2017. And also in September 2017, we sold the first bikes with the TFT display that you can see here mounted to the bike, and equipped with this MMC, we call this multimedia controller on the left handlebar side. And basically by just having the TFT and this controller, you have a more advanced odometer that gives you like advanced odometer functionalities, all in a full color display, 6.5 inch. And if you connect your smartphone and your helmet communication system, so like a headset built into the helmet, you were able to take phone calls, and you are able to steer your media control. So you can skip tracks, you can pause your playback, can control the volume, and everything is possible without the app. But if you install the app, you get a much more advanced functionality like navigation, route tracking, and vehicle information straight to your app. And I attached a video in the next slide just to show what this would look like. Maybe it's a little bit stuttering, but I think it shows what it is. It's a navigation in the TFT display. And the thing is that this navigation actually is generated on the smartphone, and it's a really simple turn-by-turn navigation, we call it. It's just made with arrows. So it's a really minimalistic navigation approach coming from the app. And our user feedback is that they like it because it's integrated, and that you can steer it without taking your hands from the handlebar. So this is just to give you a context what the product actually is. Okay, and now we have the product described. I want to talk about people, and do not only want to talk about users. I mean, users is great. This is basically also part of my job, just taking the role of the user and reminding people that the user should be in the middle of everything. But it's also about creators, yeah. And if we think about users and motorcycles and digital products, I think we are all in common that we think about something like this. This is called a spoiler. No, it's like young people with cool motorbikes, and they also have the newest clothes, and also some women, and they all are fancy about those new apps and digital products. And this is you tend to have this in mind. So young digital natives that are all familiar with smartphones and they can do everything. Reality looks like this. It's a typical random motorcycle club, BMW motorcycle club. And as you can see, those people are a little bit, yeah, they in age, they are a little bit more advanced. And it's not the typical cool user group you imagine if you think about digital products. Still, they are very interested in those products, and they want to get some value added to their riding sports. And this was quite a challenge, because if you talk about test beds and crowd testing, you're talking about digital native people that are willing to test digital products. And as you can imagine, when we started, there was no one of our target group in test beds actually, because neither there were a lot of motorcyclists, nor was there people with the exact TFT display mounted to the motorcycle that we would need to test our app. And together with Jan from Testbirds, we kind of sat there and we were like, oh, shoot, we're kind of zero users. And Jan, can you tell a little bit about our challenge that we had and how we solved it with the users?
Hey, yeah. Hello also from my side. I'm Jan, the other one from Testbirds. Yeah, thanks for the little introduction here, Jan. So maybe to give you guys in the audience some background. So we've been working with the guys at BMW Motorrad since fall of 2018. And when I took on this project of building up a crowd of dedicated motorcycle riders, I knew this was not going to be an easy one. As Jan just said, there was not a single person in our crowd. But yeah, we've come quite a long way since fall 2018, and even more important, a quite successful way, I would say. So I hope this is going to the next slide. So I want to talk a little bit about the challenges that we were facing when we were building up this community for BMW Motorrad specifically. And when we started out, Jan from BMW was so kind to point us towards this Facebook group where BMW riders who had this display on their machine assembled and discussed this display and the app that they would use with the display. So when starting to build the community, we started right there in that Facebook group. We just simply approached the admin and posted in that group, got into discussions with people in that group, and those were our first testers. However, we mostly got riders from across Europe, like Germany, Britain, a few from the US maybe. And then, pretty soon actually winter came. And we ran a test with Motorrad for their newest beta version at that time. And we invited our tester community to participate. And we hoped that enough testers would be able to hop on their bike and do some test riding on the newest beta version of the app and do the test. Unfortunately, many, were not really able to test, and they just replied with pictures of snow outside their homes. So that's when we basically realized that this community needs to be a worldwide one, and there was absolutely no way around it. So what we did, fortunately from my own time at BMW Motorrad, I remember there are these motorcycle clubs that Jan just mentioned, and they're everywhere. There is literally a BMW Motorrad club in Peru or in Honduras. So I just reached out to these clubs and I told them about our cooperation with BMW and the chance for the club members to become testers with us. And they were able to contribute to something they maybe even use day in, day out, and give feedback on a product that they are in love with, that they have spent so much time with, and that they have spent so much money on. We continue to grow this community, and the word spreads and more people will sign up with us. But as with most things, I would say not everything goes smoothly. So we still have the challenge of being authentic. we are a small company from Munich that not many people have ever heard of. So why would any motorcycle rider put their trust in us and sign up on our platform to become a tester? There are always doubters, and some of the doubters express themselves negatively, which makes it our responsibility to create a certain level of trust. So fortunately for us, Jan from BMW has a pretty good understanding of the challenge that we're facing, and he's not shying away from getting in front of the camera either to just shoot a photo of himself that the testers see when they sign up to our community. You can see that on the bottom left, or he's recording a video for the community where he's talking about the need for testers. And that is actually super valuable if BMW is getting feedback on beta versions from the end users themselves. However, I guess gaining people's trust and having riders sign up with us, those are only the first steps. A lot is still happening after they have joined us as testers. Remember, we are dealing with a target group that tends to be a little older, as Jan just said, or they're not as tech savvy. Maybe just for comparison, our average tester is well below 30 years old. Our average BMW car tester, we're also testing with BMW cars, is 37 years old. And the BMW Motorrad tester is on average 48 years old. So these are quite large gaps. So many people don't even know how to use our platform or how to test an app or what crowd testing even is in the first place. So it is our responsibility to educate testers, to give them a proper onboarding, to also tell them what they can expect or what they maybe cannot expect. And that's obviously not just my responsibility, but also the responsibility of the project managers in their respective tests. So to wrap my really small part up, this is where we currently stand. We have 250 Motorrad testers worldwide in more than 30 countries. And we're basically able to test in whatever conditions there are outside in the middle of Europe. So our Mexican testers, our Italian testers, Spanish testers, wherever they are, they can basically test all year round if they want. And I think that's a really big advantage that we have over the time when we started. So back to Jan.
Yeah, definitely. And also this picture here, I really like that because it reflects our internationally spread network of testers that we definitely need, as we have an internationally provided app in the market, and we need to be able to test it in every country in the world, especially if we talk about navigation functionality. Because often this is also connected to like local preferences, and there's no better source to know what locals need than asking locals. So this is really important to us, the international aspect. But we were talking about people, right? And there's also people that are building products. And if you think about people that build motorcycles, most likely it's like people like these. This is a fun fact. This is really someone who builds motorcycles. That's my buddy and colleague Ulf. And whenever you ask Ulf who he is, he says, "My name is Ulf, and my hobby is building motorcycles." And he's doing custom choppers in his spare time for like motor shows. And in BMW Motorrad, he's building prototypes. So really, like out of nothing, he's building prototypes, prototype bikes. And as you can see on this bike and in Ulf's pocket, I can tell there's nothing digital. There's only analog stuff, and he's great at building motorbikes, but he won't succeed in building like digital products. And that's why we need also internal people in BMW Motorrad that know how to do digital products. And Fun fact that I come back to this picture you already know, those three are all colleagues and they are all employed with BMW digital for digital products, and we took them as models as we just wanted to save the money for extra models for photo shoot, and even having like employees in the pictures. It's much more personal and authentic than anything else. So there's also two worlds of people in the company actually, and we need to get them together, and we are doing pretty good in that job, but this requires a lot of patience and understanding for the other part, yeah. But still, we are doing a really good job, I think, in marrying those two worlds. And this is also the point what I want to talk about, where we were facing the most challenges, how to get together those two worlds, yeah, actually, and how to succeed with those, yeah, with such different kinds of people. And the first I want to tell of the five is the challenge of orientation. If you talk about how to orientate with people that build motorcycles, then most likely they will look into some brands like this. Yeah, they will say this is competition. This is where we have to look at if we build the next motorcycle. It's just examples. Could be any motorcycle manufacturer that you can think of. But talking about Bluetooth connections, talking about TFT displays, apps, and digital services, there's other players you have to look at, not because they are like competition. You have to look at them because they are setting the rules in this market we are in, and those are such players. Yeah, it's like the Samsungs, the Apples in the very forefront of the market. They do the rules how a smartphone actually works. It's Sonos, yeah, they set the rules in smart home, how it feels, how it's really hassle-free, seamless. It's Fitbit in terms, as an example, in terms of wearables. It's Google in terms of like seamless user experiences, yeah, like Google Sheets, Google Tables, whatever. Yeah, this is all in the world of our users. They learn from it, and we have to somehow stick to those rules if we want to build a product and a service that it is accepted in this world of our user. Yeah, they won't accept something that's much worse than worse than the things they already have. And sometimes those two worlds, they crash together, because some people say we want to build great motorcycles, and some people say no, we need to build great services. And this is really interesting discussions we have. But as I said, it's really a lot of joy to be in that process, because those people are really smart internally, and they really listen to each other and they learn from each other, and it's great to see what comes out if you get the best of those two worlds together. Another thing that we were facing is quite obvious. It's processes. So if you think about the process that you need to develop a motorcycle or a vehicle, it's much different from the process you need to develop a mobile app, yeah, a digital product. And talking about motorcycles, I mean, you have those established testing processes. It's like all standard. I think it hasn't changed so much in the last 15 to 20 years. Yeah, it's like quality processes, development processes, and those are all pretty close to brilliant, because they have been executed again and again and again. They were improved pretty much, and this is all good. But as you can see, that this takes a long time, and in digital business we need short development cycles. Yeah, we cannot build an app for 4 years and deliver it to the customer, and after 4 years again we deliver an update. We have shorter cycles, and those development cycles, it definitely need to be independent from what's happening in the motorcycle. Yeah, we need own testing processes, like I said, we are doing crowd testing, for example. With test beds, we need different quality processes. We also undergo other, let's say, approvals for example, about the app approval of iOS of Apple. We need other development processes. So we really work strictly in Scrum with our development teams, app development teams. And we really need to think about scalability if we talk about digital products. And we need to think twice before we write a line of code, because potentially this line of code could be the fundament for the development of the next 6 months. And if we want to scale a product, this has to be somehow well thought. Yeah, and there are and what you have to pay attention to is that those two products, the digital product and the vehicle product, the physical product, that they do not drift away from each other. So you need those synchro points where you really test the end-to-end user experience a user has with this mobile app and this motorcycle, because users, they won't care if this is somehow complicated or if the process is good or bad or whatever. They will just feel if it's a good user experience or a bad user experience, and they don't care about if it's the motorcycle display, the TFT, the Bluetooth connection, whatever, or if it's the app causing the error. They just want to have a good time and want to have fun riding motorcycles. Yeah, that's the point. And yeah, as we have those really short and fast-paced test processes, test birds and user testing is a really powerful tool to cope with this, as we can really do driven testing. And I don't know, Jan, Fabian, how did you experience this in the last times we did a release? I mean, first we were somehow experimenting around with like testing modes, and what do you say? How are we doing?
I mean, from my experience, the big advantage that you guys have with utilizing us as a crowd testing provider and utilizing the crowd is that we can react super fast to your demands. So we can satisfy all kinds of demands that you guys have almost instantaneously. So imagine you have a build of a beta version ready on Friday afternoon, we can basically give it to the crowd immediately. And if you have a fatal bug that makes the app crash, you will know about this by Monday, because real users told us so. And
yeah. I can remember the situation you're pointing to, as this was a Wednesday and I had a new version of the app, and I was like approaching you on Friday on Thursday, just randomly, can we test it? And on Friday you put it to test, and on Monday I was like, wow, there's 20 written test results. And if when I got back to the team, they were like, how could you do that? How are you able to let this test over the weekend with like 20 authentic testers? This was really the point where I said, wow, okay, this is really cool. And this is a story I tell all the time. If someone is asking me what's possible, then I say this is possible, even if we achieve this by just coincidence. But this is possible. It's really possible. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So you Jan, what do you think? Are we doing good, or can we improve a little on testing? Or
I mean, generally, I think we're doing pretty good. Obviously, you know that all of our riders are fans, so there's never enough to do.
Yeah.
So this is something that we can improve, but from all sides. But then again, it's obviously dependent on the development process on how much stuff we can really give them to do. But if we look at the crowd, those people are purchasing expensive motorcycles. They're not on this journey, on this crowd testing journey for the money. They're in it because they can contribute something to a product they love. So I guess there's never enough for them to do.
That's I think that's also really special about them, because they do it because they want to do it. They're really hardly involved emotionally into the product, into the whole testing process, and for them it's kind of a value added that they can participate in that. Okay, cool. So this was about processes, and I want to talk a little bit, this is closely connected. I want to talk a little bit about the product lifecycle as well as, this is almost the same chart, but it's also connected to the processes. We were selling motorcycles for ever, yeah. And if you look at a motorcycle, it's rather really a static physical product. It is what it is. So you get it, and I mean, okay, you can tweak it and tune it and build custom parts on it and so on and so on. But it basically it stays the same. And it's really important to maintain the motorcycle so it stays in the condition it has. But it basically it doesn't change over time. It's the same. And this is how we also can treat a motorcycle. There's no need to have a real like updatability of a motorcycle, in terms of exchanging parts pretty much and getting it to a next level, because there will be a next motorcycle and it will be sold. But talking about software, this is a completely different game. It's constantly changing. So if you look at your smartphone, there is, I think every day there's some kind of app that does an update that comes around with new features or improvements or whatever. And we experience that those updates, they are considered by the users as a plus. So whenever users look into the App Store and they see, wow, there was an app update like 2 weeks ago, or even 1 week ago or yesterday, they consider it as a update and they see, okay, this app seems to be important to the company, so they care about it. And whatever bug is in that app, they will try to fix it. And we also need those constantly, we all also need to constantly do updates, as we have to react to other players' rules. For example, if Apple or Google are giving in some new design guidelines and they tell us we now have to apply those design guidelines by like May 2020, then we have to do this. Otherwise we are out and potentially we are not able to release the app anymore. I mean, it's just a made up example, but I think you know what I'm talking about. And therefore we really need to constantly update the app to work in short development cycles, and we need to be able to provide frequent updates to the user. And this is also pretty interesting if you talk about people, if you talk with people internally that were used to build physical products, they tend to always deliver 120% product with 100% functionality. And if you tell them, listen, you got those 100 functionalities and we will do 30 of them in the first run. And afterwards, maybe there are 5 functionalities that are not so cool. We take them out and we do another 10 in. They just cannot follow you because it's out of their imagination that you can form a product that's actually already has been shipped to the customer. And this is why I love software, because it's formable and you can also, you shouldn't make mistakes, but if you do a mistake, you have the potential to be able to fix it afterwards. Yeah, it's much more important, it's much more expensive if you try to do this with a vehicle and a motorcycle or a car. But I think that the point I want to make is got clear. Yeah, and this is different worlds. Yeah, so there's also a lot of understanding, a lot of listening and speaking, talking between the people, but it's great to see. Let's talk about communication. And communication is also something that happens internally in a company, but also towards the users. And I just want to show you what it actually looks like in a traditional approach. So talking about vehicles and physical products, I mean, this could be applied to every big corporation selling some kind of physical product, right? So we notice there's an R&D in the headquarters, there's an R&D department, and there is sales department of marketing and the national sales company that is serving the local market. And we have the dealerships maybe as a point of sale, and we have the users. And imagine if you want to communicate, if you in R&D and you want to know what the user actually wants, you have to go through all the chain you have to ask the sales department, then the national sales company, then a corporation, then the dealer maybe, and then the user, and everybody's like, they are busy with other jobs and they have no time basically to cope with that issue. And we are not talking about data privacy or something. And if a user asks a question, it has to go all the way back to the research and development department if it's really something particular. And what we saw is that we have this for motorcycles. It's perfect. We have all the processes, call centers, and so on. But we are not so quick with like educating those people all the way through. And for the meantime, we have to find a solution, and we have to get through to the user in order to be able to serve them, to support them. And what we do is something like this. So first of all, we are not working in like split up departments anymore. At least we try to not look at this as split departments and silos. So we rather work together as a product team, and this is working really good. And it's a lot of joy also to work with the people that all work into one product. And we totally need to bypass the whole organization, not because they do not want to work with us, but they just cannot provide us with the service we need. And what we need is we need a direct wire, so to say, to the user. And this is where crowd testing comes in. So with crowd testing as a headquarter, as a development team in the headquarter, I can directly access the user via testbirds, of course, and get the feedback of the user without asking questions into the market organizations, bothering people with like questionnaires and stuff like this. I have a direct user crowd that is international, and I can pull information from them and put it directly back in the research and development process. And the same goes with feedback and support. So we set up a central support database and feedback channel for users to ask questions. And the side effect is that this feedback and support channel is also serving like the dealerships and the national sales corporations in the meantime that have questions, because as I said, it's about people, it's about users, but also the people working in the dealerships. They are not digital people by native, they're not digital natives, so to say. They are people that are selling motorcycles. And if some users approach them and tell them, listen, my app is not working, they say, yes, I can do nothing about it, because smartphones and Bluetooth connections and TFT displays, it's a much more complex, for them, it's a much more complex thing to solve than just repairing an engine, right? So this is what actually crowd testing is about: getting the user really close to the product team, giving them a seat on the table, and giving them a voice while a product is developed. And the last thing, Fabian, I just almost skipped your slides, sorry.
Yeah, actually Sören, as Fabi is out of office, unfortunately, but I'm just taking over for a second. We've heard quite some words about that we build a community and about the development plans and the challenges arriving. And now I want to just showcase 2 or 3 slides on how we actually do that at Testbirds. So one of the, I think, most frequent tests that we do is called end-to-end testing. And when we talk about end-to-end testing, it's a combination of the analog world and the digital world. So in this case, it's obviously the connection of a physical product, the motorbike, and the app, so the BMW Motorrad Connected Ride app. And we test this literally on the road. On the right-hand side, you can see a screenshot. And if I zoom in a bit, you can see this screenshot was taken in the UK, by the way. So this motorbike is parked on the sideway very safely at 0 miles per hour. But this person is literally on the road testing under real world circumstances. It's just different being on the road, being on the countryside to test something, and especially a digital product, compared to your home where you might have the perfect Wi-Fi connection. and it just gives different result. And we do a combination of functionality and usability testing with the specific target group we've seen. It's a bit older target group, not so tech savvy usually. So it's very specific and very important to involve them. And with this kind of setup that we send out users on the road, so they might be asked to do 100 miles over the weekend to like properly test the newest version of the application prior to the release. And we can actually test the interactions of these digital and analog components. Also involve these helmets, for example, which adds another layer of complexity to the Bluetooth connection in that sense. So it's really testing under real conditions. In this case, obviously, it's motorbikes. In other cases, we've seen trains or cars. But this is usually done prior to the release or just shortly after the release to make sure that the beta version or the live version is working properly. And I think we have also heard some examples where this has been quite vital. Another of our services is called remote interviews, which allows you to contact or interact with a user with a beta version. So it's a direct conversation and interactions. You can see it on the right-hand side that the user in this case is using a digital prototype. It might be Envision or something similar, or Zeppelin. So you can have a direct call with the users, follow what he says on pre-development products. And we actually support these usually with our UX experts that run the interviews and also do analysis of the results, which can help you save resources essentially, because if you can get feedback on the usability or just the user experience prior to the development, you'll save a lot of development time and also be much quicker. It's a very direct channel, and usually because it's a remote interview, it takes away the lab feeling for users. So they can be quite direct. It can be harsh, but usually it's very helpful feedback because it's the most honest feedback you can get from a real user in this case. And last but not least, especially for very specific cases, I want to say like BMW Motorrad, where we need an own specific crowd, we use our tool called Bring Your Own Crowd, where we can build testing communities on our platform. So these are completely dedicated and cut off from the rest of the community. So in terms of data privacy, that's quite important. So we can customize it like with a logo, with colors. We can support integration like Jira or potentially LLM, depending on the setup, which makes it more seamless for a user also. So if he can see that this is labeled BMW, it allows us to make it more legit for the user. As we've heard before, that authenticity is a big topic. And with this, I'm going to hand over back to you, Jan, for some further testing facts.
Let me first also tell something about user interviews, because we are just doing user interviews, and I'm literally joining the one or the other user interviews as a spectator, and there is someone of testbirds doing interviews with actually your users that are using your product. And if you see how people are using your product and how they talk about it, and how the world they live in, then you recognize in which bubble you are actually living. And I'm always blown away by just the insights I get and the whole mood I get when a user talks about the product. And sometimes you're really like, how blindfold was I? And I'm getting back to the development team, and I'm just telling them, listen, we are doing it completely wrong. They want something different, and it's really a good experience to see that, and to also then see all the interviews summed up in a summary that you can hand into the development process. Also, to show the people in the development teams, listen, this is what the people need, and this is what they are doing with our product. But let's step up to the last point I have, and this is maybe the one where we actually came together with testbirds. It's testing. And testing, I learned pretty much in the last 2 to 3 years that testing a app product that is connected to a piece of hardware can be pretty exhausting. As you have a a network of things that work together. And this is should just point out the world we are living in. So we have a user group, so the people using our app in the market. And if we just take 79%, 97% of all our users in the last 30 days, then we have around 30 smartphone models that were important to us, where we say, okay, this is a significant group using those 30 smartphone models, and we have to test them. Actually, we have to make sure the app works with those smartphone models. They are living in more than 24 countries. They are using 2 smartphone platforms, so iOS and Android, and in average we have like 8 smartphone OS versions that we have to cope with, sometimes more, sometimes less. Depends a little bit on the release politics. But you can not just cut off a Android or a iOS version when you still have like users in there. So it doesn't work. You will be punished by the user for something like that, even if we all know that like you cannot do software development for like 20 platforms. And you can multiply this by the versions of apps you're releasing. And since September 2017, we have like done way more than 22 software updates out there. And every time you have to make sure that your software works perfectly with the devices connected. And we have the motorcycle out there. And in the meantime, we have more than 10 models that we support. So more than 10 models of BMW Motorrad are enabled, are equipped with the TFT display. And also the TFT display carries a software, and we have to make sure that the app basically works with every version of that certain software, because the user doesn't necessarily have the newest version of the software on its TFT display. And still they get the updates if they do the service with the local dealer, but we cannot assume that they have the newest software. And if you multiply those factors, this so to say playground of possibilities, you get a user experience. And we want the user experience to be really premium, without any crashes, without any hurdles. It has to work. And crowd testing, I mean, there's a lot of instruments you can use to try to solve that equation. And we do internal driven testing, of course. We do internal long-term testing, where people go on the motorcycle using the product all day long, all year long. We do customer testing in a classical manner. So we have customers that could be employees that are riding BMW motorcycle, and we extend that by a crowd testing approach. And why do we do that? And I just try to wrap that up in a nutshell. So first of all, crowd testing and the BMW Motorrad test crowd provides testing by an unbiased user point of view, because they are not employed with BMW Motorrad. They went to a dealer, they paid the money for the motorcycle. They don't know anyone in the BMW development teams, so they cannot tell, yeah, I know this component, this little thing on the motorcycle was quite sophisticated. They just look at this BMW logo and they say it has to work. I don't care about the details. And this view is really worth a lot. Then those users, they deliver new ideas to us, and validate new ideas. They have a great geographic coverage, so we can make sure our navigation works in every country it should work. We can do localization checks. So whenever we introduce a new language, we can check the translations with the users, if it's actually right, if it's in the tonality they would do it. And of course, we have this huge variety of devices and softwares. And with softwares, I do not only mean like OS versions. I also mean like apps that are living on the devices next to us, that could potentially take the Bluetooth connection from us, that could potentially take the GPS signal from us. Yeah, we have seen everything in the meantime. And this makes crowd testing a really, really valuable building block of our testing strategy, connected with the really the possibility to test in a fast pace mode with real driving outside on the road all year long, because we have testers all over the world, and there's nice weather anywhere in the world every day. Yeah, exactly. So this is just a small excerpt of what we basically have been experienced over the years, and this is my point where I want to say thank you very much for listening.
Thanks everyone for dialing in, and a special thanks to Jan Kirchhoff for taking part in this webinar, and especially in general for being a very nice client to work with. And I think BMW Motorrad and BMW in general is doing a great job when it comes to developing their digital products, and also like really utilizing the potential of different service providers, as we've also seen from other companies you guys work with. And I think that's really essential that you utilize it to the full extent. And yeah, thanks for joining today.
Thanks for having me.
Was a pleasure, Jan, like
Yeah.
always. So then to all of you, have a nice evening, and yeah, enjoy. Bye-bye.